4 common mistakes that business owners make when they hire virtual assistants. Yes, they are very common. We could probably talk about 10, but I'm going to talk about 4 main ones this week. And whilst virtual assistants provide fantastic support for small business owners and entrepreneurs, if they don't go about it the right way, hiring them and managing them, it doesn't work out quite as good as it could be. So that's what we're talking about this week, coming right up. So this week we're talking about 4 common mistakes that people make when they're hiring virtual assistants. Now, if you look around on the channel, there are dozens of videos all about this topic, interviewing VAs, and how to select them and how to manage them. This week we're just talking about some of the mistakes that newbies make when they're hiring virtual assistants for the first time. So what are those 4? Now, these might not sound logical, but I'll explain. The first one is hiring a part-time VA. Why would that be a mistake? I'm suggesting you should hire full-time, all the time. Why not part-time? It's very simple. If this is your first venture into working with a virtual assistant, and by that I generally mean somebody working outside of your country, generally in a lower cost economy like India or the Philippines, somewhere like that, if this is your first stab at it, you're going to be amazed at the sort of support that they can provide you. Now, if you go for a part-time virtual assistant, let's say it's 4 hours a day or 10 hours a week or whatever that might be, you're probably doing that because you're thinking, oh, look, I've probably only got these tasks that are suitable for a virtual assistant, 10 hours, 20 hours a week or whatever, that will do. You will very quickly use up that time. I can tell you, I've been doing this for 10 years myself, and you will wish you hired that person full-time. It's not always easy to have your part-time VA move to full-time because perhaps they have another client or 2, and they don't have spare time to support you anymore. So I would always say, go full out, hire full-time right up front. Doesn't matter if they're not too busy to begin with, you will very soon find lots and lots for them to do. And if you're anything like me, I had 1, then 2, then 3. I now have a team of 7. It is so brilliant just to have that really cost-effective support of smart people who know what they're doing. So if it's your first virtual assistant, if they are your first virtual assistant, I would always say full-time first. And in fact, if you hadn't realized, this channel is about small business ownership and entrepreneurship, but predominantly about virtual assistants because I actually own and fund a social enterprise in the Philippines which provides virtual assistants. We don't actually provide part-time virtual assistants for that very reason, because we've had clients over the years go, oh, Mary's fantastic, Sarah's fantastic, I'd like to have a full-time now. Well, you can't because someone else has got a half-time. So we actually changed the policy a few years ago. We only have full-time virtual assistants now for that reason. And it's so much easier as well for the virtual assistant because they can focus on one business, supporting an individual or group or whatever it might be. And they don't get distracted having to work with someone else in another business. So number 1, full-time. Number 2, I would think very carefully before having a home-based VA. Now, this may get me lots of comments down below the video. I know, for example, in some markets in the UK and the US, local virtual assistants are very often home-based. Those virtual assistants are generally supporting a number of clients. They're generally sort of part-time virtual assistants. I'm talking about full-time virtual assistants overseas in a lower cost economy. I would suggest go office-based, not home-based. Why? Well, I have tried both. And in the early days, I had a few home-based virtual assistants. There's a number of challenges with it. Things like power failures, internet failures, wondering sometimes what they're doing, how busy are they? It's very difficult to tell if they're working at home on their own. Hang on, I'm paying them full-time. I wonder if they're kind of moonlighting and do they have another client as well? There's all sorts of things at the back of your mind. And sometimes it's a lot harder to manage them because, it's just an individual at home they may have distractions at home, things like, apparent internet failures, and it can be quite disruptive. The difference with an office-based, generally an office-based virtual assistant costs a little bit more. That's logical because they're working in a professional office. They have supervisors making sure that they're on task, they're on time, they're not mucking about, they're doing what they should be doing. They have support of other team members around them if they're not sure of how to do things. In our office, for example, in Davao City, we have an internal chat system where everybody can help each other out and, I've got to do this, I'm not quite sure, I haven't done this before, and everybody helps each other out. It's great. And the team leaders and supervisors are there to help as well. We have proper HR support, everybody gets paid properly on time, everybody gets their health benefits, health insurance, all that kind of stuff is taken care of. Internet, we have 3 different internet providers, so we have a backup and a backup to the backup. It hasn't happened for a long, long time, but if, for example, we had a power failure, we actually have a backup generator sitting outside the office. Everybody in the office is taught how to fire this up, and they have a practice. And if it were ever needed, I think we've only used it twice in 10 years, but it's there and that fires up. So you've got all of that sort of backup and support. And I think for a small business owner, that's kind of what you want. You don't want the hassle of worrying about internet and power and, is your VA on task and, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing and so on. So that is why I always suggest office-based. So number 3, well, I suppose the third error that I often see is lack of communication and feedback. So this video is December 2020. Right now, everybody for 8, 9, 10 months, a lot of people have been working from home. We've got used to working remotely and communicating remotely, which is great because a lot of people now it's interesting that the trend on hiring VAs has increased because people realize that actually working remotely, and it kind of doesn't matter where the people are, works really well. But what you've probably found working from home as opposed to in your office is the communication just needs to be a little bit more, what would you say, positive, proactive. You can't just kind of relax as much as you would in an office environment. So I've been working at home for 9 months. Our office is only a kilometre down the road, but we decided to lock it up until everything's, all fully back to normal. So, I'd wander down the corridor and have a chat with the CFO, or I'd wander around and have a chat with the sales guys or IT or whatever, chatting over the water cooler, popping out for a coffee together, all that sort of stuff. We haven't done that for 9 months. We've got used to working remotely on Zoom and Teams and Skype and all those sorts of things. Everybody has got used to that, and they are now much more comfortable working like that. We're doing some major projects. So, my main business is management consulting. We're doing some major projects remotely on Zoom and Teams and things like that. So all I would say is you're probably used to working from home or working remotely. Just take that a little step further. Now you've got someone perhaps in another country, perhaps whose first language is not English. Just step up the communication a notch. Doesn't need to be a lot, but just make sure you're touching base. How's everything going? Giving them feedback, getting feedback for you, and it just becomes natural. I have to say, I've had virtual assistant support now for about 10 years. It felt a little bit weird at first, but we've all just had 8, 9 months practice at it. And I made sure that I over-communicated a bit. So my first virtual assistant was a PA, personal assistant, and I made a point of chatting at least twice a day. And one of those chats would be, tell me what you're working on, anything that you need help with, anything you don't understand. Because, one of the things that a virtual assistant is going to be a little bit anxious about in the beginning is making sure they're doing a good job for you and not screwing up. So you want to give them every opportunity to make sure that they understand the task and can ask questions and things like that. So do that particularly in the early stages. Thinking now, 10 years down the track, I've got a team of 7 looking after me. My executive assistant, who I have to say is brilliant, and looks after my team of 7. I would talk to her There's the odd day where we don't talk if we're both busy, but 2 or 3 times a day probably. It might just be a quick Skype chat, or it'll be a quick video chat, catching up on things. She's often chasing me, have you got this proposal done? Have you got this done? So, it's a really great relationship like that. And that takes time to develop, but once you do that, you have a fantastic VA relationship, and the support is just tremendous. So that one was lots of communication. What's number 4? Lack of stretch. What do I mean by that? Imagine you are sitting in a virtual assistant office in the Philippines working for John, who's based in the US or UK or whatever. You've never met John, although you do chat on video and so on. And John has got you doing these same old tasks day in, day out. It might be diary management, managing emails, social media, whatever. After a while, it gets a bit boring. You're grateful for the work, and John's a great boss, but it would be nice to do some things a bit more interesting. And that, I have found, is a great way to keep things more interesting for your virtual assistant. Stretch them. So, for example, I'll often have a chat with my team and say, look, you're doing a great job on this, but what other stuff would you like to learn? What do you have an interest in? So, for example, one of my team has now taken over managing all of our marketing. I used to do it for my consulting business, but now my team 2IC has taken it over, and I've actually got her a marketing coach based here in Australia who's doing one-on-one coaching with her in the Philippines. Not me. I'm not the one who's doing the marketing. She is. So she's the one who gets the coach. Stretch their capabilities, give them the opportunity to step up and do new things. Give them the support, with training and guidance and so on. And it's good career management. I want my virtual assistants to be with me for years. Generally, the obvious question is, what's the turnover? Average length of stay is probably 3 or 4 years, maybe more. I do everything I can to keep my team together. Generally, the only reason they leave is that, I'm trying to think back to the people who have left, got married and moved to another province, had a fantastic opportunity come up elsewhere. One lady who worked with me for 3 or 4 years got pushed by her family into studying law. So it's sort of, career, changes of career direction, changes of personal circumstances, things like that. So people are going to leave eventually, but I like to try and keep people as long as possible because it provides great stability in our team and support for me selfishly. I want to have that continued great support. I have to say, sorry, I do realise I'm waffling on a bit here, but when you have that relationship over a fairly lengthy period as well, I don't get so stressed now if, one of the team decides to move on and do something else, because my team hire the replacement. Yep, that's how good it can get with a virtual team. So actually, I will not interview a new virtual assistant until they've been interviewed by my team. I'll then sit down with the team and my executive assistant and get their feedback. And generally, they might have met with 3. And we have a coffee or a lunch test. So they take out the candidate for lunch and coffee and get to know them a bit. And then I get that good, honest feedback. I'll have a quick chat with the 3 based on the recommendation from my team, and we'll pick the one that's going to be best qualified for the role, going to fit in with the team best. And I tell you what, we've never had I was going to say a dud hire. That's not the right term, but we've always had great new people joining the team using that process. So all of that, where did I get on with that one? That was number 4, stretching them, giving them opportunities, training, for personal growth and so on. So there we go. Sorry, I did ramble on a bit. I do sometimes. So this was really about 4 common mistakes that people make when they're hiring virtual assistants. And let's just recap on what those were. So one is going for a part-time virtual assistant. Don't, particularly, if you're hiring someone in a low-cost country, it's just not worth the hassle. Go full-time. I guarantee you, within 2-3 weeks, you'll have found lots of other stuff for them to be working full-time anyway. Generally, I would avoid home-based. Generally, for me, I haven't found that works. I would much rather have office-based, fully supervised and supported. Number 3, make sure the communications are good. A little bit more than you would maybe with local staff who are working remotely, in the early stages at least, and allow lots of feedback and so on. And number 4, push them, stretch them a bit, let them develop, see what other opportunities they want to get into and other things they want to learn. So, for example, one of our social media managers wants to have a go at building websites and editing videos. So fine. I've got 2 full-time video editors, but help them out, see what you can do. So those are the sorts of things, let people have opportunities. So there we go, 4 common mistakes that business owners make when they're hiring virtual assistants. Thank you for watching. If you can think of any other mistakes, common mistakes that people make, do comment down below. I love to get feedback and comments. That way I know which videos are more popular. And if you're new to the channel, do hunt out that subscribe button, which is generally over there, I think. And also there's a little bell next to it. If you click that, you'll get notified every time we have a new video coming out, and they come out every week on a Tuesday evening, Sydney time. So thanks for watching. I hope your business is going really well through these tough times, and maybe we'll see you next week. Bye for now.